We are going to start your new year, your new decade off with a bang. Tana and I are going to do a 6-week live class. So starting January 21st, every Tuesday, we're going to be with you for an hour. And at the end, we're going to give away over $20,000 in prizes. We look forward to helping you kick off this new year by becoming brain health revolutionaries.
Welcome back. We are still enjoying this week with our friend and my mentor, Dr. David Perlmutter, and we're talking about his book, Brainwash, which is just so interesting. Why patients don't do what they should do, knowing that it's going to help them, and all the reasons why and what they can do to change that. So in this episode, we're going to talk about strategies, right, to break that cycle from what we talked about in the last episode.
And I love the fact that you wrote it with your son, because it's, you know, as authors and doctors, we love what we do, but ultimately the most important thing we do is train the next generation of healers. And the fact that you could do that must have been very special for you.
Train the next generation of healers, work on a project with a family member, with someone I love. I mean, it checked all the boxes. And I don't think I've said this before, but Austin really proved to be my mentor throughout this process.
Wow.
Really was incredibly circumspect about not extrapolating too much from the data. You know, I sometimes will extrapolate from animal studies to humans. I'll call it out, but I maybe gloss it over a little bit. But he was really very, very circumspect about all of those aspects about writing this book. And gosh, hundreds and hundreds of references that he cultivated. Quick, funny story. Whenever over the last summer, as we were collecting references, I would find a reference, I would send it to him. And then one day I said, Austin, are you collecting? What are you doing with all these references? And he said, you know, Dad, every time you send me a reference, I make a little yellow sticky note and I put it up on the refrigerator. And that's as far as it gets. You know, and for a moment I went, oh. And then I realized, of course, he was kidding. Everything went into a Google Drive in a specific file and was organized better than I had ever done. So it was a terrific experience, and to be able to share his perspective from his generation about the implications of what we've written versus my generation and my demographic, if you will, because many of the things that we call out that are hacking into our ability to make good decisions, like digital exposure, social media, et cetera, I think are far more germane considerations as it relates to his generation and even younger generations than perhaps for ours. And so that was actually very, very important. You know, we realized that the average American is spending more than 6 hours a day in front of one screen or another, be it their smartphone, tablet, computer, or television, which in a typical lifetime amounts to 22 years of screen time. And we can discuss what that might be doing to the brain in terms of the corpus callosum, et cetera. But beyond that, one of the important points of the book is that when you're doing one thing, you're not doing something else. You're not preparing a meal, exercising, getting out in nature, connecting with other people in a direct physical way, not paying attention to your sleep hygiene, you name it, not meditating, all the things that we will now, I guess, talk about in terms of being able to regain connection, not just to the prefrontal cortex, but regain connection to ourselves, neighbors, communities, and to our planet.
So why the name Brainwash for this book?
I would like to say that that was something that was in the back of our minds for many years. It wasn't. It was developed by our publisher, and they loved it because it's attention grabbing because we don't want to be brainwashed. But then with the bubbles on the cover and everything, people realize it's a positive brainwash. You know, we're trying to clean the brain. We're trying to offload a lot of negative influences that we're all exposed to throughout the course of our days today. and to reestablish connection to that prefrontal cortex, that part of the brain that really allows us to be the people that we want to be. And, people are starting to get the idea that, well, the brain washes itself, for example, by activation of the lymphatic system at night when we're in deep sleep. People sort of get that there is a way of cleaning the brain. Well, this is a broader net that is thrown in terms of actually rewiring the brain. And it's not rewiring or new wiring. It's sort of rewiring it back to how it used to be before it was hacked, by, this incredible exposure to the digital world that's taking our attention, that's putting a premium on our eyeballs in terms of where we go, being hacked by the addition, for example, of sugar to 68% of the 1.2 million foods that are sold in America's grocery stores, being hacked by the mentality that if you want to be
you need to say
productive,
that again.
you
68% of the foods in the grocery store.
Oh,
That's crazy.
The produce department, the meat
just
department.
crazy.
The thing that triggered it for me is I was on McDonald's website once because, when you travel, I'm always trying to find healthier alternatives.
Sure.
I'm like, well, their salads are probably healthier. And then in the grilled chicken salad, in the grilled chicken, they had orange juice, which of course has sugar in it, which breaks it down, makes it easier to chew. So you're out of the restaurant faster. And I'm just like grilled chicken and sugar. It just hit me in the face that it's a war out there, hence the Brain Warriors Way.
And that's our mission. Our mission is to empower through education. Ultimately, people are going to make their own decisions, but I think when we present this information, then we're balancing the information input so people can make more balanced decisions because, hey, well, even orange juice, well, that sounds really natural. Well, a 12-ounce glass of orange juice, that's 36 grams of sugar. It's the same as drinking a can of Coke. So that's important for people to know. Well, what about the vitamin C? Well, the 60 milligrams of vitamin C doesn't offset 36 grams of sugar. Thank you very much.
Eat an orange and be done with it.
Yeah, right. Eat the orange if you have to.
Right.
But that said, in looking at how diet is rewiring our brains and affecting our decision making, locking us into making further bad choices as it relates to the diet that we choose. Wow, that is, as we mentioned before, a powerful feed-forward cycle. How our diets increase our body habitus, our weight, and leading to obesity, that further is associated with more impulsive decision-making the very next day. One recent study demonstrated that chronic sleep deprivation is associated with an average increased caloric consumption on a daily basis of 380 kilocalories, and without a concomitant increase in energy expenditure. So that's 380 calories more input each day, while at the same time, realizing you're not going to burn that off. And that's makes for more obesity, which makes for poor decision making.
Well, an extra 300 calories a day is probably 40 pounds of fat a year on your body. And so it's like, well, no wonder we're always on a diet. And they go after these diet companies that give you foods that are just loaded with toxins, which, is another, we call them weapons of mass destruction. So
that's right. Biological warfare on your plate. And, we've said that there are some amazing books out there that you've written, that our colleagues have written, and they're worthless. They're absolutely worthless unless people act on the information that they are given. You write wonderful books, but what good is it if it sits on the shelf and there's no action? So we developed Brainwash to really be the bridge then between information and action. Okay. New Year's resolution, call it what you will, but to implement this really good information was really the step that we wanted to focus on, our decision making to really bring about change. And, it's the decision making that will ultimately allow us to be more caring individuals of each other and, of our planet, as I mentioned earlier.
And no better time than at the beginning of a new decade. So it's not just the beginning of a new year, but it's the beginning of a new decade. And we have to begin to change this crazy increase in illnesses that are under our control once we know how to take control of our brains. And that's what you talk about in Brainwash. When we come back, we're going to talk about how to detoxify your mind, which of course starts by detoxifying your brain. Stay with us.
If you're enjoying the Brain Warriors Way podcast, please don't forget to subscribe so you'll always know when there's a new episode. And while you're at it, feel free to give us a review or 5-star rating, as that helps others find the podcast.
If you're considering coming to Amen Clinics or trying some of the brain healthy supplements from BrainMD, you can use the code podcast10 to get a 10% discount on a full evaluation at amenclinics.com or a 10% discount on all supplements at brainmdhealth.com. For more information, give us a call at 855-978-1363.